Hi, everybody. Welcome to the syllabus and welcome to class. So I'm glad to have you with me, and as we take a look at the second half of U.S. history. And let's jump right in. So I'm going to start off with a quote from a really old guy who lived about 2,000 years ago, and that would be Marcus Tullius Cicero. And that's him there on the left. You can see him right there. And the quote is very simple, but I love this quote. Probably my second favorite quote talking about history. There's another really good one coming up a little bit later by James Baldwin, a little later in the syllabus, but that's a little bit later. So let's get to it. Cicero, and Cicero talking to us across 2,000 years of time. It says, to be ignorant of what occurred before you're born is to always remain a child. I love that quote. I love that quote because essentially Cicero's like, if you don't know the backstory for what's going on, you have no context in which to navigate and make decisions in our life today. So the way I'd say that, maybe in a simpler way to explain that, is it's almost like take you guys, however old you are, and erase all your memories and send you out with a full adult body into the world, but with like the mind and especially experiences of a 6-year-old. So go date as a 6-year-old. Now your body's mature as an adult, but mentally you have the experiences and the perspective and knowledge base and all that of a 6-year-old. Or go buy a house, choose a career, navigate work relationships, buy a car, any of those things, social, and even though that adult body, but that 6-year-old, just unless I guess he or she's some kind of genius, even then it wouldn't work. But because you don't have any ability of frame reference to make what we can call an adult decision. Because all of you guys, whether you're dating or like choosing a career or studying, traveling, financial stuff, family stuff, whatever, right? So as you guys all know, you're already bringing all your life experiences, things you learn, things you experience in your family of origin and community and mentors and friends and the larger culture and entertainment, all that. And you're kind of using all that to help navigate what you're dealing with right now, right? Like, for example, the person you love, is this person good for me? What are the qualities I see in them I really like? Are there some warning flags? Is there a red flag that I see that concerns me? Like, I care for this person, but you know what? Man, this stuff over here really concerns me. And that would be based on experience, right? Some sense that, this worries me. But a 6-year-old wouldn't have that, right? A 6-year-old guy drives by with a van. It says on the back side of the van, ice cream and puppies. A 6-year-old's like, or 4-year-old's like, love it. I love ice cream. I love puppies. I'm getting in that stranger's van. I don't feel any ominous signal that this doesn't make sense. Why would he be so friendly to her? Or help me find the missing puppy, and a stranger stops by and wants me to help him find a missing puppy. So, which is terrifying, right? But of course, as an adult, you'd be like, I don't think so. Or when you guys get stuff on your phone, you get some text on your phone from somebody you don't know saying Amazon wants to deliver to you, and we need your home address, or give me your login information. We need to get your login information. Or I'm a Nigerian prince and I've got millions of dollars. You need someone's bank account. And you guys would be like, of course not. That's a fool. No. So that's a long explanation of what Cicero is talking about. Now, he's talking about a larger, as citizens in democracy, which you and I are. How do we navigate democracy as an educated citizen? How do I watch the news and have any filter of which to know when a politician is BSing me? How do I know when they're talking to me like I'm a junior high student with no higher experience and understanding? By the way, politicians often talk to us that way. I'm not being cynical and negative. Both parties do that. It's not unique to one party or not. But oftentimes they tell us one side of the story and they just happen to neglect any kind of complexity or nuance or frankly the full story, just to make it simple, and they don't tell it to us. And Cicero is like, be an adult. Know the backstory so you have context and you have experience beyond your own micro experience. Because I think all of us, no matter how wonderful our family of origins may or may not be, that's not enough for us to successfully navigate the world, right? It's one of those, you guys are in college to expand your experience base and your intellectual set of tools you guys have. And Cicero is like, all human history is that classroom of experience and perceptions we can build on. And I'm not talking about you guys memorizing all these dates and a list of all the presidents in order. I'm a historian. I don't do that. Maybe I should, but I don't. If you ask me just off the top of my head to list the 21st president, I couldn't do it. And I'm not apologetic about that. That's not important, frankly. Now, maybe who that person was, maybe but the list, I don't really care about that. So I'm not talking about the trivia game pursuit of history. I think Cicero would not talk about that at all either. He's talking about the pursuit of truth and knowledge and perspective, how human nature works, how power works, how government dynamics works. What does tyranny look like? What is a good place to live? What is wisdom? What is a wise way to live? What is the best way to live? What is a danger? What is something we can avoid? And again, you don't want to recognize, like, this is a dark analogy, but you don't want to recognize a Hitler after he's already come to power, right? That's way, way too late in the game. Now, that's a very dark analogy, and hopefully we're not in a place like that. But we can't presume, based on all human history, that there isn't a tendency for, in a time of crisis, for someone to emerge. And by the way, I'm not saying Hitler left or right. Both parties, or ideologies want to have power. So Cicero would say, be awake, be knowledgeable, have perspective of what's taking place around your democracy needs you. And here on the right, that's bust of Cicero. Then on the left, he was Roman statesman around the time period of Julius Caesar, just if you're trying to like locate him in time. Now, see on the right, I don't only break it down because the U.S. history classes, you guys know. But I see on the right that's Cicero right here. And he is publicly criticizing and confronting this guy right here. His name is Catiline. And Catiline had hatched a plot to mount a revolution in Rome to kill off the Senate and to grab power himself. And Cicero and his informers have found out about it, and Cicero is publicly confronting him. So what Cicero is doing is he's trying to protect the Roman democracy from a would-be tyrant or dictator. So again, that's kind of an extreme example. There's many reasons to study history, but Cicero would say, again, wisely so, is be an adult in all areas in your life, right? Of course, personally, as I mentioned, love and family and work and finances and entertainment and joys, spirituality, etc. Be an adult and continue to grow. And as a citizen in a democracy of which you and I are, our democracy needs us to be educated. Not so much, again, not in all the dates and all that stuff, that isn't not really so important, but how things work, how process works, how power works, how fuzzy language works, and euphemism. Euphemism is just a fancy way to take maybe a negative concept, but put a nice word on top of it. So we put a nice title on it to hide the reality of what that thing really is, right? So, okay, that's enough background there, but our goal in the class is to be a part of that process. You guys, of course, already been doing that. It's not new. You guys started that in elementary school and with your family, and then junior high and high school. You guys have been slowly working on this. Now you guys are in college and you're taking the next step. I'd argue it's a big step in college. And this is important. And let me give you an example. I mentioned democracy and the importance of being educated for democracy. And let me further that. If you guys are ever back in Washington, D.C., among the many amazing things you guys should go check out. And I had the privilege of being back in Washington, D.C. with my junior high daughter at the time on a tour. And that's already, man, more than 5 years ago. Time flies. In any case, among the many things to see in Washington, D.C. is go by the National Archives. That's where the original Constitution is and Declaration of Independence. Many other things too, but those are the two core. They have a special room there. It's dimly lit because they don't want the documents to fade. That has the Constitution, Declaration of Independence. And they construct almost like a shrine, and I'm okay with that because those documents are so foundational to who we are, our aspirations as a people. In any case, that's the building here in the background right here. So in front of that building, they have a couple of statues. The one that really grabbed my attention all those years ago was it shows a Roman era man here, that's his holding his helmet, and he's holding a sword there and a symbol of government called the fasces. In any case, but beneath that kind of, I like art, so I like that very heroic looking statue. But that's not the point. But beneath that, you see the writing here: eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And that grabbed me all those years ago. I had my cell phone with me. I took a picture of it. Although neither one of those are from my cell phone. I got some good ones, but I found some other stuff on the internet I liked even better. But my point with all that is, for you, for all you guys watching this, admittedly, we're all small fish in a very big pond. That includes myself. We're just little minnows in this massive democracy of 330 million people. But each of us, in our own small way, play a role, and this democracy does not function without you and I. And that's a wonderful quote there. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Eternal vigilance is that we help our nation. We help our fellow citizens by being educated and thoughtful and having humility to learn more, to understand more, and not fall for easy answers fed to us by some politicians. Again, I'm not anti-politician. We need politicians. We have to have them, right? But to be a thoughtful consumer and participant in our democracy with perspective of history to give us, I just mentioned perspective and ability and experience to analyze what's taking place in democracy and keep our democracy as healthy as possible. We cannot presume that the arc of history always bends upward toward better things. We're sure like to hope that. But that admonition there on that sculpture, eternal vigilance, the price of liberty, is absolutely true. We cannot presume that always things will go. We can't always presume we have a Lincoln for president or a Washington or a Jefferson or FDR. Or, again, depends on being president, any aspect of our government. So, all right. And I mentioned how this is so important, and so I want to segue here for a minute and talk about George Orwell here just briefly. You guys know him. Maybe some of you guys in high school read Animal Farm, maybe even 1984. Although 1984 is kind of dark for high school, but maybe you guys did. Maybe you had an English teacher took you through that. Both of those are classic, iconic texts. Neither one of those is a light read. They're not feel-good reads, in case you're wondering. I suppose probably Animal Farm is probably most familiar to you guys. His parody, I don't know, parody be the right word, analogy of our depiction of the Bolshevik revolution in Russia and how it started with these high-sounding ideals, ended up very dark. And of course, 1984 is this dystopian or incredibly dysfunctional kind of nightmare state of absolute control of its population in all aspects. So both of those are kind of extreme, but it's helpful, again, to be armed with these kind of analysis, in this case by George Orwell, again, to protect our democracy. We don't want to start sliding backwards only to discover, we're in deep trouble. Orwell's admonition is be alert so things stay nice, right? You don't wait till things get bad to get alarmed that you carefully protect what is important, and there's many things you can learn from him. But I like that quote. I don't want to spend too long here. I want to jump into what you guys do for class. But again, just the context why I'm talking about this is this topic is so important, our historical understanding and our passion to protect the best of our national ideals and be awake to the darker side so we can stop that and work against that. All right, so the quote by George Orwell there is wonderful. And he writes, political language, and with variations, this is true of all political parties, from conservatives to anarchists. By the way, that means conservatives to liberals or right to left. He's not differentiating, he's not like the Democrats are the good guys or the bad guys, or the Republicans are the good guys and bad guys. Now, he's British, by the way, but he's saying both wings of thought, the right wing and the left wing, both of them, using political language. And then he goes on to say, it's designed to make lies sound truthful, murder respectable, and to give appearance of solidity to pure win. What he's saying is, no party says, at least initially, we want to have absolute power. And everyone needs to think like we do. And we're going to enforce everyone thinking like we do. Parties in America don't say that. party in general in the world, but typically don't say that, not at least not at first, right? But that desire for power and control and a monolithic thought system, everybody on the same page, is a terrible temptation, especially when you think that you are right. Right? And so Orwell is warning that for us as citizens in democracy to be aware of that, and again, not to focus just on like the bad guys on the right, the Republicans in American context, or the Democrats in American context. Like if our party gets in power, it'd be great. Or the Socialist Party of America, or some of the right-wing party of America. If my party was just in charge, things would be fabulous. Everyone did what our party said, thought the way we did. America would be great. And George Orwell's like, be careful. Be very, very careful. And when you hear things that just strike you as being an alteration of the truth, to say it in a nice kind of way, to be alert for that and not to simply blindly hope that things are fine and just hope for the best. Okay. All right, so let's jump into syllabus. I hope that was helpful, you guys. Just let know like why this is important. Again, I want to empower you guys. This is important for you. Again, you don't need to be a history major. A lot of you guys are going to be in all kinds of majors. Some of you guys are biology and English and accounting and all kinds of stuff, right? Science, and but all of you, despite whatever your role is, but we all play a role in keeping our democracy healthy on the local level. When we talk to our neighbors, or talk to our coworkers, our family, when we see something that doesn't make sense to us, for us to speak up, for us to help, and help strengthen our democracy. Besides all the pleasure history brings too, and wisdom as well too. Okay, so class information. So I'm Professor Michael Lorenz. Welcome to class, everybody. I'm glad to have you guys on board. My office, which you see this cluttered space around here with a bunch of books and World War II airplanes and a few paintings here and there. This is my office here on campus. I'm in the IAC building A, social science, and my office is room 219. Now, I know you guys are in online class. You may or may not be on campus. That's fine. But if you guys are on campus, I encourage you guys in office hours to swing by, say hi. I'd love to see you guys in person. It's simply a name on my screen, so it'd be nice to see you guys. Also, obviously, come by. Let me help you work on a paper, or you just want to come by and say hi. Come by and chat. If you have any questions, swing by my office during my office hours. I'm really happy to see you. There's my office phone number, and there's my office email. That's the best way to get a hold of me, office email. And there are my office hours. I just mentioned that. So in person, that's Monday, Wednesday, 11 to 11:50. Again, you guys may or may not even be on campus, so excuse me. Apologize. Oh. It's a short night last night. But I encourage you guys, if you're on campus, come by those office hours. No, again, for some of you, it's not going to work. That's fine. So my Zoom office hours, and that may be perfect for me, a lot of you guys, would be 11 to 2 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, again, some of you that maybe you're working or you have another class, that's not going to work for you. If you want to talk to me, email me, and if I can, depending on my schedule, your schedule too, let's put our heads together, and we may find other times when you and I could have a Zoom conversation outside of those listed hours there. So we're not married just only to those hours. So if you're like, yeah, I'd like to talk to you, could we set up next week and tell me a day and time? I'll look at my calendar. You can figure it out too. And let's see if we can't put our heads together and find a time and we can do a short Zoom call, and we can I can help you. We can chat about what you want to chat about. So, okay. So class information, class begins August 14 and goes all the way to finals week, which is December 11 to 15. And the books you guys need for class, you'll need 2 books for class. Oh, and let me pause here just for a minute too. So you guys probably already know the dirty secret in college classes that some classes require a book, and you may or may not really use that book. Now, by the way, a lot of classes, of course, you guys know the book is vital. You got to have it. That's the vast majority. But, I know when I was in college, there's a few times I took a class where we had a book, but we didn't really use it that much. And, okay, that is not this class. This class is heavily, heavily built on the 2 books you guys have required. Your textbook right here, called For the Record, is full of actual documents from U.S. history. We'll use this extensively in the class. And David McCullough's Truman, for which he won the Pulitzer Prize. There we go. Both these books we'll use extensively. If you don't have these books, the class is just, it's impossible. It just would never work. You couldn't pass the class. You wouldn't learn. So it's critical for you guys to quickly get both your books. You should be able to get this one relatively cheaply. By the way, I also want to ensure you guys something here at the start. You guys see how thick this book is? It's a very big, heavy book. The good news is we are not reading this whole book. I know you guys with the classes, you have lives, you have people you love and care about, you have pets, you have jobs. We're not going to read this whole book. We're going to read some good parts of it, but just portions of the book, sections of the book. So just to reassure you guys, if you're like starting to break into a cold sweat, like I saw that book in the bookstore, I got it, and I brought it home, and it made my backpack twice as heavy. Don't sweat it. We're not reading that whole book. We're just reading parts of that book. And again, the book is vital to have. You got to have it, but reading parts of it so it's manageable. So don't sweat. Well, you'll be fine. I've thought this through. But you need those two books. I think you guys really enjoyed both those books. David McCullough is an American treasure, fantastic historian. He sadly died here a few years back, but he's a wonderful storyteller, a very good writer. And not all historians are, but he is a very good writer. And Truman is not one of our more well-known presidents, honestly. I didn't choose it because Truman is like the preeminent or most important U.S. president. He's not, frankly. But I do admire him and some things about him. But he's a very common man. And the book is really, besides just following him, of course, but it's also following what's going on in America during his lifetime. So it very neatly works with our class because a lot of things that happen to Truman from when he's born to when he dies, you'll see a lot of what happens in our class. So his life mirrors historically a lot that's going on in America. He's born in a horse and buggy age and dies in a nuclear age with jet travel. So America, the changes in America are dramatic during his lifetime. And so that's why I chose that for you guys. It'll be a good read. You guys enjoy that. All right. Of course, we're using Canvas. You guys already know that. We'll be going to that. We'll use Zoom, obviously, for Zoom conferences when you do office hours. All right. And our class, what are we talking about? So, oh, that is a typo. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Got it fixed. Okay. So this class is 17B, which for you guys just simply means we're beginning in the post-Civil War time period and going up to the present. And a couple quotes I want to briefly read to you guys again, kind of remind us of the larger goal of this class. And the next one there is by Susan B. Anthony, and she wrote 1873. It is we the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who form the Union. Now, by the way, she's not getting into denigrating one group or another, so she's not like anti-white. She's a white herself. There she is right there. She's simply saying American history, the majoritarian group, the group that was largely in power historically when she's writing this, of course, had been white community because immigration for Europe, that had been the case. So if you're African American, Native American, as you guys know quite well, your voice in the system, your equal access to the American democracy, as you guys know, is very limited. Now, I've been getting better about time period, but, slavery and treatment of Americans and so forth, and also gender as well, too. So what she's saying is a wonderful statement saying we, all of us, regardless of your racial background, ethnic background, and gender, we are the people. We are who form the Union. The Union would not be complete without any of us. That's any of us. So a wonderful statement saying aspirationally what America is really trying to do, which is it's the great we, right? But of course, there's individual groups and they have distinct histories and so forth. But she's saying we can be better than that. And you can't even understand America unless you keep in mind the we. And then right below that, you have a quote by James Baldwin where he says, history does not refer merely or principally to the past. On the contrary, the great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are unconsciously controlled by it in many ways, and history is literally present in all that we do. That, by the way, is my favorite quote. I love the Cicero quote at the start of this, but that quote by James Baldwin is even more specific, and he's saying history is not in the past, it's present, and then he says something that's kind of chilling, and I think he meant it to be chilling, that we're often unconsciously controlled by history. So he's like saying, what history does, it being knowledgeable of the past, allows us to step outside of our almost robotic reactions to society around us. Because when you have no knowledge of your backstory, you simply reflectively respond from your group perception. And you have no awareness that your group perception is but one of many perceptions. I don't want to get too deep into that, but you know what I'm saying. So he's like, but having a broad knowledge of the American experience, like a broad, stress the broad, gives you ability to step outside the little world of the me and my perceptions and my singular group perceptions. As you guys know, we do have a lot of identity politics today, and that's kind of a double-edged sword. But I think James Baldwin's best is we want to see, again, and going back to Susan B. Anthony, at our best, we have a we perspective. Of course, I have from my group, you have a natural outlook on life, but to not be limited by that, but to be aware of the much broader story, and we're better for it in many ways, right? So that's what James Baldwin is encouraging us. So to see with others' eyes. Don't be limited to the vision that you have. History allows us to see issues from many different perspectives and find wisdom among all those perspectives. Okay, and then one last quote, and by the way, this last one, so we'll get to what you have to do for the class. We'll get into that shortly, so you'll be good. So this is by Martin Luther King Jr. and he writes, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively, to think critically." I like both of those, and we're going to try to do as much of that in this class as we can. Now he adds one more thing: intelligence plus character. Now intelligence, again, that is something that some way I guess we're kind of born a certain level of intelligence, and so I don't know whether we can improve intelligence, but we can certainly act more intelligently based on a broader perspective of being educated. Then he mentioned something kind of maybe surprising, but intelligence plus character is the goal for education. Now, character, honestly, is not something so much we talked about in modern education. People hear that word, I think they get a little bit nervous. I think that sounds maybe a little too old-fashioned, or maybe it's a spiritual conception, religious conception. I'd argue that's unfortunate. America has gotten a perception that character, of course, matters. It's always mattered in history, and it continues to matter. Now, in college courses, we may not talk about much about character because it sounds kind of judgmental or something, so maybe a little bit shy about doing that. But I think it's important for us to be honest about that. And history is a wonderful teacher of the strengths and pitfalls of those of character strengths or character weaknesses. And we'll certainly see that in this class. And by the way, we all have those, right? I have those. We all have some character strengths naturally, and we have some weaknesses. So it's very helpful to have an historic perception to see that experience and allow us to be awake to our own internal issues and issues of those around us too. To realize that character is supremely important, and awareness of our own issues and issues of people around us. And history is a wonderful teacher, among others, obviously spiritual systems above all, but history is a wonderful teacher showing us case study after case study after case study of the consequences of character, both on the good side and the negative side as well too. All right, so I'm going to fast forward through some of this here, talk about what we're going to do in class, and I think I'm going to fast forward through quite a bit of that stuff. You're very welcome to read it. It's important, but I think what we just talked about is more important. So, all right, let's get to what do you guys need to do for class. That's what you guys are waiting for, right? So what do we have to do? So the first assignment I want to talk about in class is your response to readings. Now, this is what you do as you read. Now, I'm going to make a separate video when I go into more detail to describe more explicitly or clearly or simply, however you want to describe it, of how to do this assignment. By the way, it's not hard. It's quite simple. But in the syllabus video I'm making right now, I don't want to go into depth on how to do this. I'm just going to very briefly describe what it is. But essentially is every week in the whole semester in modules is broken down into weeks. Every week you'll have some readings here in McCullough's Truman, and you'll probably have 2, maybe 3 short readings here in your other textbook. These are primary sources, documents written by the people who are studying. So the way you do this first assignment is as you read, for each section of Truman you read, you'll pick out 2 quotes that jumped out for you. And the first quote, you'll write that quote out, and then you'll explain why that quote is significant to the story or why it's significant to you. So you write that quote out, again, the quote that jumped out to you as you're doing your reading in that section, and then you'll describe why that quote is significant to you. So all total, maybe like 2 or 3 sentences, maybe 4 sentences, maybe max. You have your quote that you chose. Again, you select it based on the portion you read, and then you describe why you think that quote is significant to the story or the main character, could be Harry Truman, or why it's significant to you. And then you'll, as you continue to read, you'll choose a second quote from that same portion, and you'll have a question based on that quote. Maybe it mentions that Harry Truman was embarrassed of his glasses he wore. Okay, why? Why was he embarrassed about his glasses? Perfect. So you'd write that quote down. Harry Truman felt very self-conscious about his glasses. Okay, great. You write that quote down, and you write down, why was he so self-conscious about his glasses? That he only got glasses. Why was that a big deal for him? How'd that affect him? You're done. So this assignment is glued to your reading. So this is where the most direct, immediate consequence of your reading is you will create these questions. Now, you don't turn them in every week. You only turn them in twice. So you have a Word document, and you simply, as you read the sections in Truman, and as you read the sections in your textbook, you'll gradually add to more and more of these quotes and significant quotes and question. You add more and more of them in this document. At the midterm, you'll turn in all these quotes and your responses to them, and at the final, you turn in the second bunch of them. Now, again, I'll stop right here. I don't want you guys to get confused. We guys worry too much about it. I'll make a video, a separate video, just to explain detail. I also have a complete sample for you guys to look at. You're like, what are you talking about? What does this look like? So I'll have a complete sample for you guys to look so you can see exactly visually what I'm talking about, and I'll explain in more detail how to do it. I think that's enough for now. I'll just mention a couple things about it as I leave it. It's not hard to do. You simply find these quotes as you read, and you select them. It's not me. You select them. So there's no like wrong quotes. So in some ways, the assignment is quite easy. So that you simply, as you read, you have your laptop next to you and your cup of coffee or whatever. And as you read, simply looking for a quote that jumps out for you. Actually, two per section as they jump out for you. And again, I'll explain in a separate video more detail how to do this, but it's not easy. It's worth a lot of points, so it's very good for your grade. Most of you guys do very well with this first assignment. Okay, and that's, again, it's always tied to the readings. Okay, that's called response readings, direct quote analysis. That's your first assignment you guys work on. We'll have discussions in Canvas, and we'll have a number of these. These are pretty straightforward, so I don't think I need to explain that, but your discussion you have in Canvas. I will have you guys watch some documentary videos. You guys will have a response to those. You'll see that in modules in Canvas and how to do those. At the end of the semester, you'll write one paper, and the paper will be based on McCullough's Truman, of course, and based on your other textbook too. So we're based on the 2 textbooks you have in class. You don't need to worry with that paper right now, but the reading you'll be doing will help you build toward that paper. And finally, there are 4 exams in the class, and the exams are based on the lectures. So actually, let me show you here. So since I'm showing you what this looks like, let me quickly bring up my Canvas show for our class so you can see what we're talking about. Oh, I'm on YouTube. That Merced College is not.
Hey guys, coming up next, Mike Myers.
I was listening to a podcast while I was working on this stuff. All right, everybody. So not to waste time with you guys watching me click around my screen, I paused the video and then I found. Okay, so here's what things will look like in a typical week in Canvas. So you'll see Unit 1, Week 2, and there's the dates for our second week of class. You'll see at the very start of that week, you'll see the reading homework. So when you click on that, you'll see reading homework. It tells you what to do that week, and it tells you there's your books, as you guys already know, and it tells you here's what you're reading. So it tells you specifically the pages, and you see that you'll be reading 15 to 31 and 32 to 38. And then in your other textbook, you have that one reading. So, and then it talks about what I just talked about briefly. You'll work on finding quotes for those. And I won't go into detail about that right here, but that's your reading assignment. Let's go back to the home page here. All right. You can see in that second week, you have a discussion due. And then right here, you see you have a lecture. And actually, you have 2 lectures to watch. So you click on that lecture, tells you what you need to do. So you can watch the lecture below, take good notes on it, and you can use my exam, and you'll click on the lecture right here, and you'll see a guy that looks like me, maybe a bit younger, and that guy's to start lecturing. So you'll take good notes. So let's go back to our exams. So the exams are based entirely on the lectures. So the lectures are available to you guys there. You'll see every week you'll have probably 2, sometimes 3 lectures a week. Typical lectures probably about 50 minutes. The nice thing though is you guys are online learning, right? So if you're like 50 minutes, man, I'm not gonna do 50 minutes. Okay, great. You can do 15 though, or 20, and then you can step away, get something to drink, walk the dog, do some Pilates, kickboxing, whatever, watch some sports, come back and start taking notes again. And to help you guys is, you'll see in the lectures, I use a Word document. There's a lot of text there. Don't sweat that. Just write down the stuff I highlight or stress in the lecture. So if it's not highlighted and not stressed, you don't need to write it down. You can just listen to the context. Whenever I say this is really important in a lecture, or I show you it's highlighted, that's you want to pause the lecture for just a minute, write it down, take good notes. On the exams are based entirely and only upon the lectures. If you have good notes, you'll be in really good shape, and you can use your notes on the exam. That's great. That's one advantage in an online class, right? You can't do that in-person class, but online you can. So an online class, you can have your notes all stacked up. And you want to study ahead of time, naturally. But if your notes are all ready to go, you can sit there with your laptop or computer. The clock starts on the exam, and you start going through the exam. Again, you'll probably study and taking good notes. Sometimes the questions, you don't even need to look at your notes because you already know the answer because you studied them. But occasionally, sometimes you come across a question like, oh man, I remember that one, but I know I have it in my notes. Perfect. You just rapidly flip through your notes. You find where you took good notes. Oh, there it is right there. You got the answer. So that's one of the perks of an online class. You can use your notes. You can't use other sources, but you can use your notes for the exams. If you take good notes, listening to the lectures, watching the lectures, be very helpful. Study those for the exam. Then you can use the lecture notes on the exam itself. You guys will be in good shape. All right, there's how the classic grading breaks down. You can see the first part. Hold on. I saw a typo there, so I quickly fixed it. Okay, so response to readings, direct quote analysis. That was that piece I talked about at the start of this. It's worth 180 points. It's worth 26% of your grade. It's a big chunk of your grade. So all those quotes you guys find, you explain them or write a question, those will really pay you guys out back because they're worth a lot of points. More than a quarter of all our points are based on those responses to the readings as you read along. Canvas discussions, documentaries, your paper at the end of the semester is worth a bunch of points. And finally, the 4 exams we have all total are worth 20, almost 29% of the class. So I, of course, will update your grades in Canvas as we go along, so you'll see your grade, popping in there so you guys can monitor that. General class info, some of this does not doesn't all necessarily apply to us, but some of these will. Late work. So if you miss an assignment, you need to contact, let me know what's going on. On a case-by-case basis, I make a decision whether I'll allow you to turn it in late or not. So obviously, medical emergencies and so forth, I'll look at that and typically allow students to make that up naturally. But it depends what it is. So case by case, just contact me, let me know if you miss something. But try hard not to miss because it's extra work for both you and for me if that happens. So if you are not active in the class, there's a good chance at some point I'll drop you. So some students, as you guys know, they're MIA for like 2 or 3 weeks. They're not even in the class at all. And so there's a chance they might be dropped. But I may or may not drop you, honestly. So the next little point there is, if you realize the class is not working for you, protect your GPA. Make sure you drop. Because honestly, my policies, I lean toward non-dropping because sometimes our students are gone for a while. It turns out they have family emergency, and I feel bad because I dropped them. So to prevent that, I typically lean toward not dropping, although don't rely on that. But I lean that way. But if you feel like you need to get out of the class, you don't like my ties, which I'll be wearing in other videos, or life gets busy. I get it. I had to drop some class in college too. Protect your GPA, do the quick paperwork. You can do all online, drop the class, protect your GPA. don't stay registered in the class, but you actually stop attending and get an F. So, all right, academic dishonesty. So I'll make this short and sweet. Just don't do it. I know there's some terrible temptation. I'll mention just a couple of these. One of the most current ones right now is to use an AI writing tool like ChatGPT. So instead of me like watching the video, I'll have ChatGPT do it for me. And then they'll write my response to the video for me, or they'll write part of my paper for me, or whatever. So, or maybe they'll write the whole paper for me. So, yeah, that's plagiarism. That is cheating. So that's not you. That's not you doing the writing. And so if you use an AI writing tool, such as ChatGPT or similar AI writing tools, you'll get a 0 for that assignment. It's catastrophic for your grade. It's terrible. Or sometimes students go on, they just find a whole paper. They go online or they cut and paste from some website. You guys know the drill, right? So they find some paper or some information and they simply cut and paste that into their response, or their paper, what have you. Same outcome. We have good software and hopefully good software here too. Also, if you have good software on our system here at the college, it's a very good chance that if you do either one of those, using a writing tool or some other paper or cutting and pasting of the internet, that we'll find that out. I will find that out. And the consequence of that is typically 0 for the assignment, and it could be worse. So I always encourage students, like, look, let's get really down to it. Let's suppose your paper you're working on is not quite what you hoped it was going to be. And in fact, let's go worst case scenario. Your paper's not good. And you know that's not good. Like, oh man, I should have read more consistently. I'm kind of behind. My paper is kind of half-baked. But you know what? Turn that in. It's still worth a chunk of points. Even though, again, you want to have an excellent paper. But let's go worst case scenario. Turn in that paper is 1,000 times better than a ChatGPT paper or a plagiarized paper, some source online or wherever you got it from. Why is that? Again, let's go worst case scenario. Let's suppose your paper's bad and you get a D on it. Ooh, that's painful. It's not good for all kinds of reasons. But you got a D means maybe you got 60 points out of 100. Okay, not good. But you know what's way better than that? It's way better than that than if you use ChatGPT or some AI tool or some other form of plagiarism or cutting and pasting from the internet and you get a 0. A 0 is so bad for your grade. It's not just that assignment gets pulled down. Likely your whole letter grade gets dramatically shifted. I'll give you an example of that. I've had cases where a student was doing okay in the class. They're getting a C. Okay, it's not great, but it's okay. It's okay. They're getting a C in the class. They're all right. Turn in the final paper. It's plagiarized. That paper gets a 0. They go from passing the class to failing the class because that assignment is worth a lot of points and they got a 0 on it. It's catastrophic. They have to take the class again. Don't do that to yourself. I'm begging you. For you guys. That's not for me, but for you guys, don't do that to yourself. Not only do you not learn, and there's some moral issues there, but even if that doesn't matter to you, the whole learning, that's too abstract, and it's not right, it's not moral. Okay, let's set all that aside. Even if you're simply being pragmatic, if you fail the class, it's terrible for your GPA, it's expensive in time and energy. Why would you do that to yourself? So, solution is don't do it. Get the learning. Extra credit, there's all kinds of good stuff you guys get extra credit, but I'm not going to talk about it here in this video. I think I'll make a separate video on things you guys can do. Campus security. Campus Shield is a wonderful app we can have available here on campus. Now, but if you're not on campus, you don't need the app because it only works here on campus. But for some of you, even though for our class you're online, some of you may have in-person classes on the Merced campus. If that's true, I recommend getting that app because it's the quickest way to summon campus security, whether it's a health emergency or God forbid, a safety issue, so forth. It's the quickest way. And of course, you can dial 911, of course, call the local police, absolutely. But likely the first responders, because they're so close to us in proximity, is going to be the campus police. So that app is a great way to do that. If you touch that app, it automatically opens up and it calls them. It's automatic, it calls them. And you can tell them where you are, even knows your geolocation of your location here on campus. It's a wonderful app. If you guys are on campus, I highly recommend it. It's free. Once you get down here to college, you can just simply delete it and get rid of it. But while you're here on campus, it can be very helpful. Some of these things here, my syllabus apply only to an in-person class, which you guys are not, so you don't need to worry about that stuff there. I will mention this one, civic academic dialogue, respect for pluralism. That's a long expression. Simply means be thoughtful of your fellow colleague, of your fellow students. This mostly be in discussion post. You may disagree with someone's discussion post. That's fine. But respect them as a person. You may disagree with their content, but not with who they are as a person. So just let respect each other, make the class a safe space for all of us. And finally, we're going to wrap it up here. If you have any kind of challenges, disabilities, please make use of all those resources we have here on campus. Same thing for sexual misconduct. We try to keep our campus, whether that's online or in person, a safe place. Let's keep that safe for everybody. Be very thoughtful of your fellow students. If you see something that concerns you, please let me know. Finally, there's a wonderful graph here and chart here and syllabus about all kinds of services our campus has for those who may be helpful to you, tutoring, a whole variety of things. So, that's enough, I think. So, welcome to class, everybody. So I'm so glad you're with us. It's going to be a really wonderful semester. It's a fantastic and important topic. Our democracy needs you, and it's going to be fun too. So intellectually, it's important for our democracy. It's important for you guys to continue to grow up as an individual participant, as a fully fledged adult in our democracy. It's important, and also it's going to be enjoyable. So with all that, welcome to class, everybody, and we'll see you with the next lecture. So take care, everybody.